Okay, here we are. Welcome to Serious Brandy. This is our interview with Amy Pasquet. Many of you know Amy from Cognac Pasquet. In fact, we've interviewed Amy and her husband Jean before on Serious Brandy. But Amy is also the president of the National Committee on Pineau de Charentes in France. And so today she is going to talk about Pineau, this delightful aperitif that I think more and more people are drinking and finding an interest in. So, Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for being interested in Pinot. I know it's like a really kind of obscure drink, so we need more people to get the word out there. So thank you very much for joining us.
Why don't you start from the very basics and tell us what Pinot is?
So Pinot is two things put together. Pinot is made with cognac and grape juice grown on the same estate. So you have to essentially grow cognac. You make the wine, you distill it, and you keep it for about 9 months since distillation is, about 3 months after the harvest. And after those 9 months is up, you're going to put it with grape juice from the same estate. There are no additives in Pinot. It's not permitted. So it's pure terroir because, again, it is from the same estate. The grape juice comes from the same estate as the cognac. You can either make white, so made with white grapes, or red or rosé, which is made with red grapes. And that has been made here in the Charente for at least 500 years, pretty much as long as we've been distilling. It's a way to conserve the grape juice because otherwise, it's going to ferment. So yeah, the alcohol stops the fermentation process immediately. Sometimes Pinot is fermented slightly. So our rosé Pinot is fermented to 2% alcohol, and then we add the alcohol to stop the fermentation process. Our white Pinot is unfermented, so we don't let the white grape juice ferment at all. Essentially, Pinot has a minimum limit of sugar. It's pretty high, so I'll go with it. 125 to 130 is the minimum limit. It's not written in the standards. It's by the minimum ABV of the cognac that you have to add and the minimum potential alcohol in the grape juice that you have to use. So it's 10% potential alcohol minimum, which is about 180 grams per liter of sugar. And the alcohol that you add has to be a minimum of 60% alcohol. So you can reduce that cognac before you put it in the Pinot. So that's really the essential of it. But please know there is terroir in Pinot, even if there aren't sub appellations like there are in Cognac. So the Cognac sub appellations, Grand Champagne, Petit Champagne, Borderie, Ferbois, Bonbois, Bois Ordinaire, they don't exist in Pinot. So you just get the Pinot appellation, and everywhere that we make Cognac, you can make Pinot, but it's not going to give you an idea of where it's from on the bottle, except there are two new appellations within the Pinot appellation. It's the Ile de Ré and Ile d'Oléron. So you can know that Pinot comes from the islands. Yeah.
And what's the proportion of cognac to grape juice in a
It's
typical?
about 75% grape juice to 25% cognac.
And since there's no appellations, does that mean the grape juice and the cognac could come from different crus within cognac?
For us, they actually do. They have to come from the same estate owner. So you guys know that we have vines in Petit Champagne and vines in Grand Champagne. Usually, the cognac that we use to put in the Pinot comes from the Petit Champagne, but our Pinot producing grapes come from the Grand Champagne. So the grape juice comes from Grand Champagne, but the cognac comes from the Petit Champagne, at least in our Pinot. I think a lot of the periphery crus are going to use their like farthest out cru to make the Pinot. For example, the most Pinot is made in the Charente-Maritime. So Charente-Maritime includes Bonbois and Bois Ordinaire. There are very, very few producers of Pinot in Charente. It makes up less than 25% of all the Pinot made in the region. And Charente is a lot of vines, though, because it's the Grand Champagne. Yeah, sorry, my card machine made a weird noise. I'm not used to being in the shop right now.
We couldn't hear it, so don't worry about
Oh, okay, good, good. I'm glad.
it. And you said they have to be made by the same owner?
That's right. It has to be the same estate. So a lot of people around here have maybe two crews. That happens quite a bit. It's rarer to have four or five different crews, but it could happen.
And how is Pinot generally consumed?
How is Pinot consumed here in France? So French people actually consume 80% of all Pinot. So unlike Cognac, it's not exported. We keep that here for us. In the region, it's usually an aperitif, so it means a before dinner drink. You can serve it like neat. You can see my bottles are chilled because they're ready to be served. You can serve it on ice, which is great. The ice is going to cut that sugar. But we're also seeing a great cocktail culture around Pinot, like no and low cocktails, because you can make really outstanding cocktails because Pinot already has the sugar. You're not going to need to use simple syrup, and you already have like the alcohol. So you can make cocktails that are within like 4 to 6% alcohol, and they don't lack that mouthfeel that like a lot of virgin cocktails lack. So I use it a lot in a mojito. If you want to try a Pinot Hito, I highly recommend the Pinot Hito, and you're not using any like beetroot sugar or anything like that.
Which Pinot do you use for that for your mojitos? The white.
Yes. So actually with our rosé Pinot, I like to serve it a lot with a tonic water and lime.
And are they always chilled in France or does it vary?
Yeah, yes and no. Okay, so what I've showed you here, what we make at the estate is young Pinot. My white is probably around 2 years old. My rosé is not aged in oak. So Pinot, I did forget in the beginning, depending on which category of Pinot it is, it's aged in oak or not. So white Pinot must be aged in oak for at least 12 months out of the 18-month aging process. Red Pinot must be aged in oak for at least 8 months out of the 12-month aging process. And Rosé Pinot doesn't have to be aged in oak, but it does have to be aged for at least 6 months before it's bottled, and that can be in stainless oak or whatever. So our Rosé Pinot is unaged because we like the color. The white Pinot stays in really old oak barrels. We don't want oak imprint, but that depends on the Pinot producer. There are some people who really do like oak in their Pinot, and that's their thing. And then you have really old Pinot. So some of you guys ordered this with your Serious Brandy bottlings. They will be going out starting on Wednesday. So we're bottling everything on Tuesday. We got all of the orders in now. I'm just collecting the labels on Tuesday, and everything will be bottled then and shipping after that. So these are ready, and this is really killer old Pinot. So it's a blend, an average age of 30 years. You'll taste some like older Pinots in there and younger Pinots. It's 17.6% alcohol. So most Pinots are around 17% alcohol. We like them a little bit higher because it's going to give you better balance in our opinion. So it's always looking for balance. Just like when you make a cocktail, you're looking for a balance between the alcohol, the sugar, and the acidity. It's the same in Pinot. So we're always looking for that balance between alcohol, sugar, and acidity. And our Pinot that we produce is always 18% alcohol. And this one, we found it to be slightly sweet. So that's why we made the new balance with the blend. So I do hope you all will like this one. And it's a really old spirit for a really nice price point, which I think is cool.
And it's a blend of different Pinots that
This
bottle.
is a blend of different Pinots. They are all from the Charente-Maritime region. So it's pretty much like Framboise and Bonbois, but like I said, we can't put that on the label. And there are some that are like as old as 40, older than I am. So like 45, 48 years old. Yeah.
And is there an alcohol range that's required for Pinot?
Yes, it must be between 16 and 22% alcohol, and outside of that range, it's not Pinot. So just so you know that Pinot is stable. So above 16% alcohol, it's stable because the bacteria won't get in 16% alcohol things. You must store it upright because 16% alcohol will eat the cork, and you don't want to taste that in your Pinot. But you don't actually have to store it in the fridge. Even if it's open, you say, oh, I don't know what to do with this bottle. I've opened it now. It's stable. So don't worry about it.
How long does it last once you open a bottle of Pinot?
As long as you haven't drunk it, it's okay.
So it'll last, it'll
It
last
lasts
for.
quite a long time. I mean,
I have to admit,
really
I've
like,
never had the experience of having to have one open long enough to answer that question, but I know people ask. So
yeah, we get asked all the time, and that's my pat answer, like as long as you haven't finished your bottle, it's fine. But I do recommend like don't leave it open a really long time. Like your spirits bottle is going to change flavor if you get it down here. But these are my tasting bottles in the shop, and I don't have a problem with them because there are enough people tasting that this isn't going to stay like this for very long.
But so weeks, you think, is that?
I think I think honestly, if you go over 6 months, maybe you should definitely drink that. But it's 16% alcohol and up is really stable. And anything that comes from our house is going to be 17 and up or 18 and up. So yeah.
Are grape juice and cognac the only ingredients to Pinot? Are there any additives allowed in Pinot?
No additives allowed. No boisé, no caramel, no sugar. No, you're not allowed to add additives, which I think is really particularly good, especially in this region.
Although I assume they could be in the cognac that's added to the Pinot.
I don't think you'd want to do that. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't think you'd really want to do that. The objective, I I think most people really want to make that fruit shine. And once you put boisé in the cognac, it kind of puts a cap on the top of the fruit and you can't taste it anymore. So we're actually going to be launching an additives experience here because I was inspired by tequila movement of no additive free drinking and just showing people like this is what this tastes like when you have it in your spirit. And I actually did it for an Italian journalist recently, and she was like, "Oh, I have tasted this before." But nobody's ever going to let you taste boisé. I mean, but we're like, yeah, let's go let you taste boisé. The Pasquets are crazy enough to do that.
That sounds great. And what about the cognac and Pinot? Are there any requirements for the cognac that's used in the Pinot, or can it be any cognac?
Okay, so it has to be at least aged a year. You can't just distill your spirit and then put it right with the grape juice. That no. Um, the cognac needs to be stored in wood, but it doesn't say if it's active wood or not. So we personally store it in inactive wood. It's like these casks that have been around for like 200 years. Um, and the other thing is it has to be between still strength and 60% alcohol. You can't lower it any further than that. So those are the three requirements. As far as I know, that's a good question. You might have stumped me there. I need to look at the cahier de charge to make sure I'm not missing something. But yeah, it needs to be cognac, and it's we do pay what we call CVO. So I think this is a very French thing. It's called contribution volontaire obligatoire, voluntary, mandatory contributions. So that's definitely in French. And when I talk about this, people are like, yeah, that's normal. And you're like, no, voluntary and mandatory don't go together, guys. Yes, here they do. In France, they do. So if you're part of the appellation, you have to pay this. So we pay it on the cognac as an ingredient. Um, the cognac that we use for Pinot is called cognac as an ingredient. It's not actually cognac yet because, as you probably know, it does have to be aged in oak for at least 2 years to be called cognac. So it's cognac as an ingredient. It's the same kind of cognac that you'll find in like pate. It's cognac as an ingredient. So most of the pate that you find in France is going to say this is cognac in it. It's probably not actually aged 2 years.
Oh, interesting. And for these like the really aged Pinots, like the 30 years, does that mean the Pinot as a whole has aged 30 years? The cognac added to the grape juice
That's
has.
right. That 1 year of cognac aging for this one doesn't count. So that year is just like off the record kind of thing. It's part of the process, but the aging of the actual product is really once it's been blended together and aged together.
And can it be made with older cognac, like full cognacs?
Absolutely. We've tasted some Pinots made by our friends, not completely legal Pinots, but using like really old spirit. And it's actually kind of confusing when you've tasted a lot of Pinot because it's like, oh, this tastes old but young. It's very kind of mind warping tasting experience to taste those kind of Pinots. Some people do it. Some people actually lately. I don't know if you guys know what's happening in the cognac world right now, but we have a quota system here that we are only allowed to put in the still a certain number of hectoliters of pure alcohol per hectare. And that's because of supply and demand. So the big houses say, we need this much, you guys make this much. And we have to fold to that because that's actually the law. Um, don't ask me my personal opinion of this system. Anyway, so nowadays it's actually really more expensive to use a cognac produced very recently than a cognac produced like 3 or 4 years ago. Uh, because simply 3 or 4 years ago, we had a quota that was twice as big as the quota now. So that means, you know, you're not absorbing your price per hectare, like costs of farming essentially when you're only distilling a little bit per hectare. And it's not like you're allowed to make anything else on the hectare of vines. You can't just like be like, oh, and the rest I'm going to make grape juice. No, you have to destroy the rest.
You have to destroy it, what's left.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have a request the comments for your Pinot recipe. Is it just you
Okay.
substitute the Pinot for rum, or is it more than that?
Substitute the Pinot for rum, and you don't need the simple syrup either. Okay.
So no sugar, so just lime, mint,
Yeah.
Pinot,
Yeah.
soda, presumably, right?
And soda water. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. All right.
Very easy. I mean, if you know how to make a mojito, it's like just making a mojito, but substituting. So yeah.
Sounds delicious. So tell
Yeah.
us about the committee and both what the committee does, how you got involved in, it, how you got to be president, all of those things.
So, guys, you should know that I am the very first non-French person who's president of any French appellation. So, yeah. Pinot is a much smaller appellation than Cognac as far as volume goes. Pinot represents about 8 million bottles a year. So we've been making Pinot here at Pasquet since the 1990s, early 1990s. Actually, I found out Jean made some Pinot back in 1976, but didn't keep it. Unfortunately, I would have loved to taste that. He's won some awards for his Pinot, and we've just continued with his recipe. So, you know, the Pinot appellation works kind of the same as the BNIC, which is the Cognac appellation, but kind of differently. Since we don't have these big locomotives, we don't have these really big companies quashing all other initiatives. Pinot is very much a like collaborative effort. So you're going to get all kinds of small companies really working together to do like collaborative publishing and kind of putting a marketing budget together for the appellation because the appellation does need, you know, people to know what Pinot is. Everybody knows what Cognac is, right? But not everybody knows what Pinot is. So we do have a fairly big marketing budget for France. We used to do marketing in New York up until, well, this is the very last year we're doing it. The Trump taxes have kind of put a stymie on that one. So we used to sell a lot more Pinot in the States, but the taxes have kind of done us in. Anyway, so the Pinot Committee works together. There are about 400 producers of Pinot in the region, and the Pinot Committee kind of gets everyone together on the same page about this marketing budget and tries to sell more Pinot. So selling more Pinot is educating people. We spend the vast majority of our marketing budget here in France because French people do drink Pinot. But the biggest market outside of France is Belgium. So we do spend quite a bit of money in Belgium as well. That is the biggest part of what the Pinot Committee does, but there is another part. So on one hand, we have kind of the say it like we don't actually take care of sales, but trying to push Pinot to consumers. But on the other side, we have the production side. So all of the standards of Pinot are also taken care of by the Pinot Committee. So how you make Pinot, if there need to be new rules. So for example, this rosé Pinot that I have has not existed for a very long time. There used to be only red and white. And so we've now added the rosé appellation that's much lighter, fresher, and like kind of a younger Pinot. So both the production side and the marketing side are taken care of in the same house. So if you do come to Cognac, it's actually in a really beautiful 1800s home in the center of Cognac, and it's called the House of Pineau. And yeah, very cool place.
And how did you get to be president? Were you elected by your peers, or how does that
Was
work?
elected. Isn't that a joke? I mean, so during the election process, like all French appellations, you have both the producers and the negotiants or the like buyers and sellers. So the producers get 3-year term, and then the negotiants get another 3-year term. So unlike Cognac, it's really the producers who have the power here and not the negotiants. There are about 14 negotiants in the syndicate of negotiants, and they needed to recruit more. So I got recruited to the syndicate of negotiants, although all of the Pinot I sell here is mine, except our new old Pinots. Those are from negotiants. So I got recruited essentially to help bring new blood to the negotiant side of things. And they knew they needed a president for this term coming. And they said they wanted a woman. So I was pretty much the only one. So,
Are you the
but they were
first
like,
woman president of the Pinot Committee?
absolutely, as well. Yeah. A foreign woman. How much more like woke can you get, right?
And how long is your term?
3 years. So I have about 18 months left. I was elected in June of last year, and they'll elect, I mean, it's already kind of known among the producers who would they would like to elect. And since we know it's the producers who elect this year, well, we pretty much know the next person. It's kind of a banana republic, kind of. But the BNIC is way worse.
And do you, so for regulating the Pinot, do you like, does every Pinot have to go through an approval process or something like that with the committee?
Yes. Absolutely. No Pinot comes out on the shelves that hasn't been tasted by the Pinot Committee. So, very much more regulation than Cognac because Cognac eventually, the BNIC goes out into different countries and picks stuff off shelves. And if it doesn't taste right, well, then you get a slap on the wrist and you have to stop producing that lot of Cognac. You have to recall it, whatever. For Pinot, it doesn't go on the shelves unless it's tasted.
So how does that work? How do you literally taste every single Pinot on that goes on the market?
So it depends on the size of your lots. Like a lot of people are going to come out with a really big lot, blend a bunch together. We come out with really particularly small lots of Pinot. So, it's called revindication. And you send the Pinot Committee an analysis, lab analysis of your product. And then the Pinot Committee actually comes out here and takes Pinot from your tank before you bottle it and goes back and has a blind tasting with enologists and other producers. So nobody knows whose Pinot it is. Actually, my latest Pinot had a problem. So it didn't get through the first time, and we had to do some blending, buy some other Pinot in, and put it through, and then they accepted it. So, even the president sometimes has a problem.
What can you talk about what type of problem or what types of problems generally you run into?
Yeah, okay. So there can be some flavors that the Pinot Committee doesn't like. It's like sometimes there can be kind of a mushroomy flavor. That's what we get. Um, there can be just like rotting flavors. There can be just like disagreeable flavors. So they have a whole map of this flavor thing that's acceptable and unacceptable. And yeah, ours is always on the kind of savory side for a Pinot. So sometimes we actually do have this problem. It's not the first time it's happened, but I think our clientele likes that, and it's not a typical Pinot. So they do want it to be within the realm of what's typical for Pinot. And so when they're tasting it, they're like, this tastes like a normal Pinot. But I also think that that has its limits because some people can make really good products within the rules of Pinot, but they don't necessarily taste like all the other ones. So it's a double-edged sword being like, we're testing all the quality, but also that doesn't let things that are outliers go through. So yeah.
So that's interesting that I would have thought they were just making sure that it fit the regulations, but it actually they have to like it essentially is what you're saying.
Yeah, it has to be like a normal Pinot. So there's sometimes, like Guillaume doesn't do the Pinot process. He had a lot of Pinots that were not accepted, and that's when he was like, I'm done with this. So he does do a few Pinots now that I have become president. But it's true that he's, invested in his brand MMC and he's working on that. So that makes complete sense. But he did have some difficulties in the beginning. And I think that's a problem for me because he wanted to make Pinot. He wanted to make Pinot a little bit differently. And you can make Pinot differently, but that just didn't please the tasters enough. So that's kind of one of the limits to the system.
And you're referring to Guillaume Grossbaron.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
But
He's a
that's
good
funny
friend.
because one of my favorites that I've been sipping lately is one of these MMCs that's very old and has all kinds of rancio and really
Yeah,
tastes, but
yeah,
so
absolutely.
he just decided no long he's not going to do it, so he can market it. He just can't call it Pinot. Is that
That's right. Absolutely. So it's another vin de liqueur, which is the like whole of the appellation here in France, but it can't be called Pinot de Charente.
and do the big producers make Pinot? Like, is there Hennessy Pinot? Do they make?
No, 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 no. There's not enough margin for them, so they're in it for that anyway.
And do you personally taste each one, or do you break down into smaller groups?
I'm not on the tasting committee, so it's only people on the tasting committee who do that. There are about 50 people who taste these, and there's one tasting per month. So you have to submit your sample, and there's only one tasting per month. So if you submit it the day after the tasting, well, you're going to have to wait another month. So yeah.
And how, like, when you first came to France, did you start with Pinot right away? How did you get introduced to Pinot?
I tasted my father-in-law's. I mean, they already had Pinot, and I was just like, everybody has Pinot. That's a normal thing here. We serve it a lot with like my mother-in-law makes a tourte au Roquefort, so Roquefort torte, which is really good. We drink a lot of Pinot with cheese here. I mean, we do eat a lot of cheese here, so it goes really, really well. And I think it just goes with the gastronomy because my mother-in-law always cooks like a three-course meal every day. So when I got here, I was living in an apartment in Nyon, and my roommate and I had a really big problem. So I moved out and I came to my in-laws' house. They weren't my in-laws yet. And they took me in, and I was just eating really, really well. And it was a whole new education for me because I grew up in the US, as you can hear. And I mean, I guess you guys did the same things as I did, doing keg stands at football games, drinking Franzia from a box. I had no flavor education whatsoever. If you guys give that to your kids, that's fabulous, but I didn't get that. And coming here for me, I learned so many things about like flavor and savoring and just enjoying the whole like food and drink and not just getting drunk to get drunk. So that changed my entire perspective on things. And yeah, I was introduced to Pinot by my in-laws. And then, everyone around here has their Pinot. So even like, for example, Paul Giraud, if you try his Cognac, it's lovely Cognac. He doesn't sell any Pinot, but he makes really good Pinot that you can try at his house if you ask specifically for it. Yeah, everyone just kind of does that in their garage. And maybe they sell it, maybe they don't. If you sell it, you probably don't make it in your garage though. So yeah.
And on the committee, are all the committee members producers, or are there other people on the committee as well?
Everyone who's elected is either a producer or a negotiant. So you might not actually make Pinot, but you definitely sell Pinot. So we do make and sell Pinot, and I'm thinking of people like ABK6, ABK6. They make Pinot as well. Like the Pinot that you find at Total Wines is ABK6 Pinot. And yeah, it's everyone, even negotiants probably make their own Pinot plus buy Pinot in.
Now, I know there in other regions of France there are sort of similar drinks like Floc in Armagnac and Pineau in Calvados. Do you drink those, and are there differences? I mean, obviously Pineau is made from apples, but are there differences you see in the way they're made between Pinot and those other aperitifs?
Okay, so yes, there's a major difference between Floc and Pinot. Floc is not aged. So the Floc committee decided that you can only sell young Floc, and aged Floc is done. And Floc is having a very hard time right now Every year they make less and less of it. They're about only 3 or 4 thousand hectoliters made every year. And we're actually in the same, we have a syndicate of syndicates between Floc, Pineau, and Mac Vin du Jura. So there is in the Jura region and the wine region, they also make an aperitif like this one. And Pineau is the biggest of them, so we kind of like help the other two. And if you want to help Floc out, you can help Floc out if there's any in America. I don't know, but they make less and less of it. The Côte de Gascogne have taken a lot of the wine that would have been used to make Floc and making Côte de Gascogne because it's probably slightly easier to sell. I don't know. We don't have the same structure here. We don't have really a very strong wine appellation in the Charente, whereas when I went to Eos to the Maison d'Armagnac, I was like, I want to taste Armagnac. They're like, let's taste some Côte de Gascogne. I'm like, no, I want the Armagnac. No, Côte de Gascogne wine. No, guys, no. So they're very much like pushing their wine and not so much the Armagnac and even less the Floc de Gascogne.
And do you know why they decided that it couldn't be aged, the Floc? What was behind that?
I think it was to have a product with like rapid rotation because obviously Armagnac has to be aged. I really am not sure. And I've not spoken to the people on their committee either. I was supposed to meet them. We had a national gathering. I was supposed to meet them then. I didn't actually meet them. They didn't come. So I don't know.
And what about other kind of, I mean, obviously there's sherry and port are a little different because they use wine they use more proper wine, I think. Is that right?
Right. It is fortified wine, and they're using spirit that is spirit from wine pumice. So it's not a noble spirit. It's like grappa, and distilled in really industrial distilleries. So like the people in port have like two really big distilleries that distill all the spirit for the port. And I think you do have some port that has as much sugar content as Pinot. There are some that don't have like so much fermentation. But generally speaking, yeah, it's they're similar. The English have had their hands in all of this. So yeah, the English had a big trade thing going on with cognac, but with also with port. And port was also made to save the wine. So cognac was made because it was turning bad in the boat as white wine in the 1100s. There was global climate change back then as well. And they started, so it was the Dutch who started distilling that in Rotterdam, and then they decided it would be better to distill here in the Charente. But at the same time, the port people had the same kind of problem, the wine turning in the boat. So they said, we're going to put alcohol in it. That's a good idea. So there were different usages though, because here in the Charente, it seems like there were some Navy usages for like the spirit that we were distilling, so they would keep it on boats. Alcoholize the water so it wouldn't kill you. Whereas the port wine was actually sold as wine. So they're slightly different, but I don't think they're all that different.
Is grape juice, is the grape juice produced as grape juice in cognac as well, or is it only produced for, like, is that a thing that cognac producers make just the grape juice, or is it only made for the Pinot?
That's a good question. I've just come out with our own sparkling grape juice. So we wanted to make a low or no alcohol product because we've been getting a lot of people who want to stop drinking alcohol here. And despite the fact that they're here, they're like, we want to try something, but not alcohol. And you're like, you do know you're at a cognac property. Yeah, but you make good stuff and you're organic and you're B Corp. So yeah, we came here because that's what the region does. Okay. So yes, there is quite a bit of grape juice. If you go to Japan, you can find Paul Giraud sparkling grape juice all over Japan. He sells containers of it there. We've just made a small batch to see how it's received, and so far so good. But the idea is not to make alcohol to take the alcohol out of it again, because that is very energy rich as a process. And the idea is to be, less impact on the environment. So that would be more impact on the environment. So yeah, there are other producers like us making grape juice, whether it's sparkling or not, and very good grape juice because our grape juice here isn't as sweet as a lot of grape juices are. So you get a better balance between the sugar, the acidity.
It's too bad about the tariffs because I feel like Pinot is one of those things that everyone I tasted on loves it, and it is such a good potential market here someday for it. Maybe hopefully that'll resolve eventually, and you'll be able to drink.
Exactly. Nothing, everything changes. That's change is constant. So, even with the tariffs, it's the only thing we're still selling in the States. Okay. So I got one order from our distributor this year. It was only Pinot.
Have you had that experience in the States when you've brought Pinot that people take to it, or what's your experience with selling it here?
So I was back home in June for a Pinot party, and people absolutely loved it, and especially in the bar world because it can be such a good substitute for any alcohol plus sugar, and you don't have to add like alcohol and sugar, you just add the Pinot. So try it with a lot of cocktails. If you go to the website, it's called Pinot Academy, and it has a ton of cocktail ideas, all in English. And hopefully they're not going to shut the website down because we've stopped our US budget, but go to it now before the budget's over.
All right, we'll have to save that. Work on saving that. And what are do you have other than what you make? Do you have favorite Pinots that we should look out for if we're in France?
Yes, absolutely. So there's someone here called Chateau de Boulogne, Beaulon. And anything that can be done to make the best Pinot possible, that guy is doing it. So Chateau de Boulogne, I highly recommend if you find his Pinot, and he's pretty well distributed um, all over the world, actually. You can probably find, I don't know if you get Michel Forgeron back home, but he makes some pretty interesting Pinots as well. What else can you find? Maybe Chateau de Montifaux also. I saw they were well distributed in New York and they make good products that are really good price points. So I recommend trying them as well. Of course, you guys know Gros Perrin. That's something to try, obviously. And Valentersigné, VT, fabulous Pinot as well.
Oh, I didn't know they did a Pinot too.
Ooh, yeah, you should definitely try that, Steve.
All right. And what about certain like food accompaniment suggestions? Is it something where are there particular foods that seem like something with foie gras or something like that would be a no-brainer for Pinot?
Absolutely. So here at Christmas time, we always have Pinot and foie gras. We usually serve this one right here. Although, if you guys have tasted our Mahe framboise, that actually goes really well with foie gras also. And what I really like to serve right now is this old Pinot and cheese because I don't know if you've ever had like hard cheeses and like Basque jam. It's the same kind of effect. You're going to have like this sweetness and all the flavors of like really old grapes plus the rancid. It goes really, really well with any kind of hard cheeses and even goat cheese. And like I said, we have our tarte au Roquefort, so Roquefort, and this is great.
I think I want the recipe for the Roquefort tart as well. That sounds
Yeah, I can give you the recipe. It's really, really easy.
great. And then since you mentioned the framboise and we have you here, it is delicious. Tell us a little bit about what that is, how you make it, because it's so good.
Okay. So my framboise is a riff on Pinot. Back in the day, my father-in-law made that for my mother-in-law, who's called Marie Françoise, and she loves raspberries. So they actually planted 400 raspberry plants in our backyard. Picking raspberries is a pain, like especially at 6 in the morning before you go work in the vines or do other stuff here. So we've ripped the raspberry plants out. We found a local lady who grows them organically for us, and we work with her really closely. She's actually planted more plants for us. So every year we buy about 300 kilos of raspberries to make about 3,000 liters of my framboise. So there you go. There you have um, the proportion. So we macerate the freshly picked raspberries. So she picks about 50 kilos for us. We pick them up at her farm. We put them in the alcohol right away. And when it's time to pick grapes, We do the same thing as we do with the Pinot. So it's the same blend of grape juice. So it's Monty and Uni Blanc is all white grape juice in the Pinot, in the Maille Framboise, sorry. So it's the same blend as we use for the Pinot des Charentes. And we put it with the eau de vie that contains the raspberries. We press that with a little tiny hydraulic fruit press and we put them together just like we put the Pinot together.
Is the eau de vie that goes in the with the raspberry, is that the same you use for the Pinot, or is
No.
it just totally unaged?
So, since it's an out of the appellation project, we use our distilled Merlot, which is completely forbidden in Pinot. So the eau de vie actually does have a little bit of red fruit taste to it itself in the Maille Framboise.
So the framboise then is it's this Merlot eau de vie, it's the grape juice you use in the Pinot and the raspberries.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow, well, it is delicious. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's out there. And you make it every year?
Every year we make Maille Framboise, and so every year it's different. Like with our cognacs 4, 7, and 10, we're making the best that we can with the stock that we have. So this past year was quite acidic compared to the year before that, and this year I think is between the two of them. So it really depends on the weather and the raspberries too. They also have the weather also has a huge impact on the raspberry flavor.
Have you ever done a raspberry eau de vie?
Distilling raspberries is very complicated. So I talked to a Serbian guy who does that, and it's like it takes 20 kilos to make 1 liter. And we were like, oh, that's worse than grapes. So we are actually working on some different macerations right now. Not raspberries, but other plants. And I think you guys will like them when they come out. So Jean is pretty close to finishing what he's doing. But yeah, we have some more surprises coming too.
Oh, that sounds exciting. When can we look forward to seeing what those are?
Probably this coming spring. So like 6 months.
Great. Great. Well, Amy, thank you very much. This has been such a pleasure to hear about Pinot. And I would say for our Serious Brandy folk who don't know about it, absolutely find some Pinot and drink it. It's delicious. It's low alcohol. It tends to be budget friendly for the most part, I
Yeah.
would say, right? And definitely the Pasquet Pinots are excellent, as are others. Unfortunately, it's not so easy to find in the US, but for our folks in Europe, they can certainly find it, and there are ways to get it. In fact, you gave us an opportunity to order some of yours, both the regular and the 30-year old, when we did our recent Pasquet bottles.
Absolutely. So just for that, bottling will take place on Tuesday. So if you have any more like extras that you want to add in, that's still possible because yeah, we're going to be shipping starting like on Wednesday.
All right, so you heard it here. You can still get some Pinot if you want.
Yeah.
To put it in order. And should they just email you for the order form on that?
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. And I think for you guys, since you don't have to pay VAT or anything, it's like 39 euros or something like that. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and we really
Thank
appreciate it.
you, you too. And drink
Keep
some Pinot,
making,
guys.
yeah, keep making great Pinot for us.
We'll do our best at that.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.